welcome to the Shamayim Jewish Animal Advocacy Podcast. I wanted to take just a moment to reintroduce myself and also briefly explain our podcast and what it's about in case we have any new listeners since the last time we posted. So I'm Emma Goldblatt. I'm the program manager here at Shamayim, and our podcast covers a range of Jewish and vegan animal advocacy topics, and we also feature some interviews with influential voices in animal advocacy and Jewish leadership as well. And our goal is to uplift the voices of those in the Jewish community who care about issues surrounding the well-being of animals and our planet. So if you know someone who'd be a good guest, we'd like to hear about them, or if you yourself would like to be on the podcast, you can email us at info@shamayim.us with any suggestions. And, please share with the podcast with a friend who maybe might want to learn more about the intersection between animal advocacy and Judaism. And if you'd like to support our work, you can visit our website, join our mailing list at shamayim.us, or even give a donation if you feel so inclined. That's about it. We can jump into today's episode. So, happy listening. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Shamayim podcast. We're really happy today to have Benjamin Happ. Ben is a partner at BERA, a consultant firm focused on accelerating the speed and scale of investment capital into alternative proteins and a better future for food. He has a background in investment banking at Morgan Stanley and Credit Suisse, and in investment management at Allianz, at Abax, and Myriad. He has been actively involved in alt protein space for over a decade. So I'm very excited to introduce him and to learn some stuff from him. So welcome, Ben.
Thanks so much for having me.
Of course, we're so glad you could be here. So my first question is, what inspired your journey towards being an animal advocate?
Yeah, well, I have a cousin whose name is Alexandra. I have a lot of cousins, but she's a particularly special one. And at the age of 5, she made the decision to start eating a vegan diet on ethical grounds. And she's today a rabbi and an activist and just an incredible human. But when she made that decision, I was actually living with them in Washington, D.C. After college for a year. And it still took me over a decade to get to the same conclusion that she had come to as a 5-year-old. And for me, what really flipped the switch was Jonathan Safran Foer's book, Eating Animals, which once I'd read it was very difficult to unsee. And for me, I stopped personally seeing animals as food. And then the question is, okay, well, what to do about that? And that's a question that I've really struggled with for ever since reading that book in 2009. And so I've personally been eating a vegan diet, but trying to figure out, what to do and how to engage and how to potentially influence or persuade others to have similar behaviors is a really tough question, and one that I've been working really hard on trying to figure out.
Yeah, definitely. Can you tell us a little bit about the kind of work that you do?
Yeah, so we're focused on alternative proteins, and the reason that we are focused on alternative proteins is because it's my view that is probably one of the very best ways to go about eliminating the animal factory farming complex that exists today, or reducing animal suffering. I think that the reason that alternative proteins are so important is because telling people you can't do that or you shouldn't do this, I think is a really difficult sales pitch. It's not a great one. It's not one that necessarily inspires the sort of action or change that the person saying it often would want. And so instead, what I think is great is an alternative, and presenting alternatives that are sufficiently compelling and desirable and affordable and available that people of their own volition will choose in their own self-interest to do this. And so instead of a sales pitch of thou shalt eat a carrot or thou shalt eat salad, it's like, hey, listen, there's this stuff and it's available and it's awesome and it's better. And we're not there yet, but that's the direction that I'm hoping that we can move in. Because I have a lot of trust and faith in people's general tendency to act, in their interests. And if something is awesome, people generally want it. And so we're working really hard to bring alternative proteins into the mainstream, have them be less and less alternative. And when I say alternative proteins, I mean specifically plant-based things, certainly, but also foods that are using fermentation technologies and cell-cultivated meat, which is those are really interesting areas. And the challenges that they face are that they are today, those technologies, especially on the fermentation and cultivated side, are not at cost parity to their animal analogs. And they're also not able to be produced at enormous scale, the scale at which humans consume food. And those two things are related. And so we're working really hard to try to find solutions to bring capital into this space from sources that go beyond the venture capital investments that have fueled it to date, to allow these companies to grow and to scale and to build the sort of production facilities that are needed to actually have enormous impact, and to also be available to make the products available at attractive prices. That matters. Price matters. I mean, the products have to be compelling. They have to be something that people want to eat, craveable, desirable. But if they cost the wrong price, that's a real problem. And if they're not available, that's a real problem. And the companies are working really hard on making stuff that is awesome. And actually, a lot of progress is being made on those fronts. But a tough problem to solve is what to do about where the enormous amount of capital comes from that will enable huge production facilities to be built, and to really bring the cost down of these products. And so that's where we're focused, and it's a really cool space. And again, it's all with the hope that these investments will actually be beneficial investments to the investors that are funding them, that they'll be commercially beneficial, that the investors will make money on these investments, and also too that these companies will make stuff that is great. And when something is available and great in the right price, people will probably eat more of it, and that's the hope.
Yeah, definitely. That's really great and important work that you're doing. So that's awesome to hear. My last question for you is, what changes do you think are the most critical right now, and how can we inspire people to make those changes?
Well, I think that, first of all, I'd flag the work that the Good Food Institute is doing. I'm a huge fan of GFI, and think that their global teams are doing really important work as an advocate for the space of alternative proteins and of a different and better future of food. The work that they're doing is really important in terms of cultivating the next generation of leaders in this space, from university programs globally through scientists and technologists and business leaders. And in a lot of ways, the work that we're doing at BERA is related to, and in some ways an extension of, the awesome work that GFI is doing. But GFI is pretty clear in their thesis that that alternative proteins are absolutely critical for there to be large system-wide change in the global food system. And if we're successful in having these companies be big and making stuff that is that people really want, I think that that'll be enormously beneficial for animals. I care deeply about animal welfare. I think baseline is that non-human animals are sentient beings, and they can suffer, and that they merit consideration. And the current system is something that I think is also really detrimental to the health of animals, certainly, obviously, but also to humans, and certainly the environment as well. And that these alternative proteins hold the promise of us collectively being able to do something different and better than we've done historically. And I think that using animals as food, we've used animals throughout history for a lot of things. We've used them as currency, we've used them as transport, we've used them for telecommunications with carrier pigeons. Like these technologies have become obsolete. And I think that the technology of having a cow or a chicken or a pig be food is one that we can actually do better than we're doing today. And so for me, that critical path is focused on creating alternatives that are truly good alternatives.
Yeah, that's a really good comparison, and so relevant that this is just so outdated, the practice of animal agriculture. So,
can I add one last thing on that? I'd say that I'm extremely excited by what some of the leading companies in this space in precision fermentation and in cell-cultivated meat are doing. Making salmon, making eggs, like these things are possible. They are absolutely possible, and they are awesome. They're really cool. The challenge is that today they're still more expensive than is commercially competitive, and they're not able to be produced at scale. And so I have so much hope for what these companies are doing, because when we talk about new technologies, like these new technologies are real and they work and they are awesome. And I think that ultimately they'll carry the day. And I think there's a real chance that we'll look back in 20, 30, 50 years and say, my goodness, what were we doing? Like, obviously, this is a better solution. And the investors and governments that are backing this and backing it well are going to do well in this. And the ones who don't or don't adapt will not. And I think that's how this plays, and that's certainly my hope.
Great. Thank you for adding that, so we can end on a positive note here. I always like to share some kind of hope after talking about such heavy topics. But thank you so much for coming on, spending your time to talk to us, share with our community about what you do. And yeah, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Bye.